Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Cindy Chavez here. Today is Tuesday, July the 24th, 2018, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, your first daily dose of happy for the day. And we hope your Tuesday's off to a great start. Of course, we want that with every day of the week, but we always say it every day because we want it to be off to a great start. So what better way to do it, right? And I have been talking in the last day or so about how we are adding to our roster of co-hosts. Cindy, instead of 5, we are now 7. There are now 7 of us because we're adding Patty Framo and Linda Armstrong. Patty's going to do the Monday at 4 p.m. podcast, and Linda is going to do the Friday at 4 p.m. podcast. So
that's exciting.
It is exciting, isn't it? It really is. Mm-hmm. And as Tom reminded me so nicely yesterday, or was it one day? I can't remember which. One of them reminded me, now I have 7 coaches, personal coaches, giving me coaching throughout the week. So my coaching range has expanded.
That's a lot of coaching now.
That's a lot of coaching. It is. But what it really is a lot of really good perspectives. And that's been my biggest lesson ever since I brought you guys on last November. That's been my biggest lesson about just how great it is to have different perspectives. And I know our listeners like it too because they keep listening. That's my best clue. You know, I see it in the numbers. They're playing all of our episodes, so they must like it. Otherwise, why would they listen, right?
Well, I love getting all the different perspectives, and that's one of the things that about law of attraction that helps us be more effective when we are using the law of attraction to create something consciously is the ability to look at different perspectives.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's the thing that brings the shifts to us. So it's kind of funny though to hear you say you have coaching like every day of the week. It reminded me of when I was in coaching school, you know, for a year, and there were 25 or 26 of us in the class. And so of course, as we were learning to coach, we were coaching each other. And we joked at the end of the year that we were just like, we had just been coached to death because it's like, it's really easy when you're first in that situation. And it's like, there's all these coaches and we're all learning and we're learning new skills and tools. And it's like, there's a lot of things in your life that you want to change or shift or get a different perspective on. And then once you've just been coached so much, by the end of it, it's like, I can't think of anything.
I've done it all. It's done. Okay, my life is over.
Can't think of one more thing but it's kind of funny. So that's wonderful though. 7 co-hosts now.
Yeah,
wow.
7 co-hosts. It's really great. Wow. And I have to say, too, I mean, I understand what you were talking about, and it's kind of funny, but I'm sure you agree. It's really amazing, all the different ways that we can explore this topic. Because the topic of the law of attraction, when you look at the topic itself, it's a fairly simple topic. Ask, believe, and receive. There It is. You're done. But we're able to look at it from a broader perspective, a lot of different modalities and so forth. And in doing so, we basically explore life. And when you're exploring life, there is no end to the number of topics. There's no end to the things you can explore and understand and appreciate. So when I look at it that way, I say to myself, there's no end to the amount of coaching I can get.
Right. And there's no end to the different perspectives. I mean, I've told you before, a lot of times if I have a break when there's another co-host and you together on the podcast, if I have a break during that time, a lot of times I'll listen in. And it always blows my mind, all of the different perspectives.
Right.
Because like you said, it's a topic that on the surface, it can be looked at as pretty simple. Even Abraham says, right? It's like, well, we gave you the simplest version of it there is.
Mm-hmm.
It's just feel better.
Yeah, right.
But you want more information. So we wrote all these books. And then you say, too complicated, but it's really just feel better.
Yep, just feel better. Hope you feel better.
But we are great at making things complicated. So all those different perspectives, I think it's great. I'm excited to welcome the new co-hosts.
Oh yeah, me too. I'm going to be fascinated to see what their particular perspectives bring to the table. Because I mean, it's one thing to say, "Oh yes, everybody has a different perspective." Sure, given, granted. But when you find out what the meat of that perspective is, that's why I enjoy hosting the show so much, because I learn about what your perspectives are. When I'm talking with you, Cindie, I learn all about what Cindie's perspective is. And it's fascinating because every one of your perspectives is, surprisingly enough, different from mine. And so that's where I see the differences, because I compare it to my own perspective. I say, geez, I never thought about it that way. Or, I know exactly what you mean, but you're looking at it from a kind of a different side that I never actually looked at. And there's no end to that. That's the best part. It just goes on and on.
Yeah, I think that is the key towards being able to make the shifts that we want to make.
Yes.
Is being open to the different perspectives. So you are going to find a lot more of that here. Yay.
All the more reason to be a subscriber. So if you're not yet a subscriber, take the time to do it. And I realize, Cindie, I've got to start adding a little piece whenever we do the subscription promo, because I always say how easy it is to do it. And it is really easy. But it occurred to me last night, there are people who perhaps try to do it and maybe they're not quite so tech savvy and they fail. They can't. They run into a problem, they don't know how to solve it, and maybe they give up. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I wonder if people have been just giving up because they didn't know how to fix one piece of it that just wasn't working properly. So I think I'm going to have to include something in the promo each time that says, and if you run into a problem, click the contact button, tell me what you're running into, and I'll help you fix it.
Yeah. Is there a specific issue that was in your mind that you thought people might have trouble with?
Not really. No, I mean, it is a fairly simple process. Well, actually, yeah, now that I think about it, there is one I can think of, and that is because Android phones don't usually, not always, it depends on who's making the Android phone, which manufacturer, but they don't usually come with some kind of built-in podcast playing app. That could be a little bit tricky for somebody who just isn't really familiar with getting an app from the Play Store. So that's one potential area. But I mean, it's a fairly simple process. It's hard to think of where somebody could go wrong. And yet I've had so much experience in the world of IT with people who, because they're technophobic or just not technically experienced or whatever, they run into a problem and then they give up. I've seen it on so many occasions with what seems to me to be the simplest stuff, but I've seen it. And that's no reason to have somebody give up. Just because they run into a technical issue doesn't mean they shouldn't be able to get the benefit of whatever the thing is. That's my view anyway. So that's why I'm thinking.
Right, and sometimes you get a new phone or your phone updates, and like everything is, now I know nothing about getting around this. So
yeah, they changed it on me, and I don't know what to do. Right.
Well, awesome. Well, good. Well, I like that you said that, and of course, anybody that wants to reach out and send us a contact for any reason, we're happy for that to happen.
Absolutely. Oh, we love hearing from listeners.
Send us an email, use the contact form, however you reach out, find us on social media. But if there's anything we can do for you, reach out or just reach out and say hello.
Absolutely. In fact, Tom and I had a treat yesterday. Anne Marie called in and said, you guys have a great topic going, but you forgot to talk about laughter. Like, oh, geez, how could we have forgotten laughter?
Wait, and doesn't Anne Marie do the laughter yoga?
She does indeed, yes. Which, of course, makes her an expert on the topic and how to apply it and so forth. So, yes.
See, and that's what we're talking about with the different perspective, right?
Yes.
Because it didn't even come up with the two of you, and she was over there thinking, why aren't they talking about this?
That's right.
Yeah. I love it. I think it's great. That's exciting.
It's also
why we I remembered that she does laughter yoga.
You did, though. You associated it. Yeah. You associated it with Anne Marie, and for good reason, because she and Mike and the Buttonwood, they do laughter yoga on a regular basis. So, yeah, very good. So how have you been? I mean, I haven't talked to you since last Wednesday. So how's it going in your world?
It's going great.
Well,
it's going really well. Remember when we started this book, for anybody that's wasn't listening way back when we started, we've been reading Money and the Law of Attraction, Learning to Attract Wealth, Health, and Happiness, Esther and Jerry Hicks. And it's a #1 New York Times bestseller. We thought that money was a topic that pretty much everyone has an opinion, or an opinion on, or possibly a struggle with, or a money story they'd like to change. So we thought this would be a great book. So way back then, I had an experience where because of something that I heard, I decided that I was going to do 1,000 affirmations a day.
I remember that. That was
For
great.
10 days, just for 10 days, because that's kind of a lot when you're getting used to it. And so I chose, because we were in this book, I chose the affirmation, I feel rich.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being asked, why didn't you choose I am rich? And I said, well, because I felt like my logical brain could argue with me about that, because there's pretty much always going to be somebody richer. So my logical brain can say, no matter how well I'm doing, well, Bill Gates is rich. You're not rich. Like, and so I said, okay, well, but anybody can feel rich. So I picked, I feel rich. And I remember reporting in over those 10 days because some really wild stuff happened and money coming out of the blue.
Right.
I have some friends that call that blue money, just when money just shows up out of the blue
money.
And you weren't expecting it's just blue money. And so I had this idea that I wanted to go back to that and do another 10 days of I feel rich. Well, actually, just another 10 days of 1,000 affirmations a day, actually. And I actually had a dream with the affirmation.
Really?
And I've had it more than once. And so the affirmation was, I love my life.
Oh, nice.
And, the more I thought of it, I thought about how, honestly, most of us have a life where we may love a lot of the things in our life, but it's sort of a mixture of things we love and things we're not so crazy about. I mean, would you say that's true?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In fact, I would say we slice and dice it until we get down to the point that I only love a certain piece of my life.
Okay. Yeah. And so I thought to myself and this is one of my perspectives, I realize not everybody agrees with me, but the idea of, oftentimes I'll even tell a client if they bring something to me that they're really not loving, I will challenge them with, part of you really does love this, or you wouldn't have created it.
Yeah, that's one of those uncomfortable reminders, like, oh, yes, our inner being loves everything that's going on. Oh, no.
Right. And so, but here's what I thought, because remember, and I talked about this, those 1,000 affirmations a day of I feel rich, for the first few days, it felt like untrue, and then it felt ridiculous, and then it just felt like I was bored with it, but the more I stuck with it, I just really started feeling it. And so I had this thought about, I love my life. And I mean, that's all inclusive. Like, I love every part of my life. I love the painful part and the stressful part and the wonderful part and the beautiful part. I love my life. And what dawned on me is that when we love something, we generally don't have resistance to it.
True.
Like, in those moments where everything is just going swimmingly, there's no resistance. Like, oh, this is so great. This is wonderful. Everything is just going so well. So if we can love our life, even the parts that feel unlovable at the time, we will lessen our resistance. And when we lessen our resistance, if we're loving everything, what's going to come in? More stuff we love.
Interesting.
And
point.
I don't have any fear about, well, what if I learn to love something terrible and I get more of that? That's not really going to happen. Because the things I truly love and are passionate and crazy about and, joyful about, those things will rise to the surface. So, I've been working with that affirmation, and that feels exciting.
Now, this is an interesting point you bring up here, because you mentioned how with this affirmation that we are loving everything about life, even the parts that we don't like so much, which is tough. That's a tough viewpoint for most of us. I know what it is for me. Like, I have to love the part I don't love. Ugh, I don't know if I can do that.
Well, here's the thing. I remember one time when I was really struggling against something, and for quite a while. And one day it hit me that I had just been pushing at this and struggling with it. And I just surrendered to it. And I said out loud, I still remember, I was sitting here in my office and I thought, why am I struggling against this? I need to just accept it. It just is what it is. And I said, okay, you know what? I accept this. And I felt such relief. And then I felt like such a rock star. Like, man, I'm awesome. Like, I finally got there. I'm totally accepting of this. I don't have any resistance. This feels so much better for like 1 second. And then my higher, wiser self said, well, can you love it? You know, it's like, oh man, I'm great. I accepted it. Can you love it? And I was like, oh man, really? I was like, wow.
Just shoot me down right now.
My higher self is just kicking my ass today. Like, okay, can I love it? But what I realized is that it's kind of like that I feel rich affirmation. I feel rich. 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 Do I really feel rich? No, at the beginning, not really, but I was committed to hanging in there with that affirmation until I started feeling it, because what I was doing was training my brain to trust me. Like, yes, right. I do. And so the same thing with loving something, you know, just the choice. Okay. I love my life. I love it. I love all of it. And the things that aren't, you know, one of the things we know from experience in life is that all of us can think of something that's going really well in our life, just one thing that's going great. And often if we trace it back, it will take us back to some experience that really was not great. And so when I have struggles in my life, I can look at that and think, okay, but it's not over yet. And this struggle, there's a treasure in here somewhere. It is going to lead to something amazing. And so I'll just love it now. Why wait until it's led me to something amazing? I'm just going to choose to love my life now.
Well, plus you're taking advantage of what Abraham teaches as the definition of what a belief is. A belief is a thought you think over and over again. So even if you're starting out believing, well, that's not really true, you keep telling yourself over and over again and you start to believe it.
Yeah. I one of my friends posted something yesterday on Facebook about this very thing, about statements and, you know, self-talk and the things we say to ourselves. And one of the things she mentioned was that it seems really silly to lay in bed and say, I am asleep, when you can't sleep. And she said, until you realize the next morning that, oh, I fell asleep faster, because she was talking about laying in bed. Telling yourself I can't sleep never works. Right?
That's a great idea, though. What a great idea to tell yourself, I am asleep.
Oh, so yeah, it gets into that area of, are we lying?
Well, I suppose up until the point that we start to believe it, we are lying. And then at the point where we start to believe it, we're not lying anymore.
Yeah, well, that always reminds me of the Seinfeld episode where George Costanza says it's not a lie if you believe it.
Which is true. It's just, I mean, there are so many examples of that today. It's ridiculous. I mean, you could look at public life and you can find all kinds of examples of it.
Oh, yeah, well.
You know, but the fact is we are very, very good at making ourselves believe almost anything. Now, this actually is a very big superpower, I think. I mean, I kind of think you do too. It's a huge superpower to be able to convince ourselves what it is we want to believe, which means, like any superpower, we have to use it carefully. I mean, you go around saying, I love my death. Guess what? You're leading in the wrong direction there, bud.
Well, I think that the idea of I love my life, I mean, like I said, I dreamt it, and some of my really best ideas have shown up that way. I don't know if it's because that's when my higher self, when I can finally shut up and my higher self can get my attention or what. But I thought, okay, I'm going to try it. What can it hurt for me to decide for the next 10 days? I love my life.
So have you started doing this one?
Yeah.
When did you start?
Yeah, I started it yesterday.
Yesterday. Oh, okay. So you're doing what? You're doing 1,000 of them?
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, I was amazed the first time you did that with I Feel Rich.
Yeah. Yeah, and money started showing up. And what's funny is I said, why didn't I keep going?
Well, I wondered the same thing, but I also realized what you just said earlier in the podcast. It gets boring after a while to say the same thing over and over and over.
Well, there was a moment in there in the course of the 10 days where it felt like, but that was early on. And it's just, it takes some time and it takes some dedication, but, I'm enjoying it. So we'll see. We'll see what shows up.
I think it's going to be fascinating. I mean, plus you and I have two shows after this week that we'll be doing. So I suspect you're going to share some more details about what happens as you continue to say, I love my life to yourself over and over again. But you got me inspired. I'm thinking, I'm not sure I really am up for doing 1,000 just yet. But I can see saying that a few times a day to myself, maybe even more than a few times. That's a good thing to say. And I like the idea of going after it with the recognition that it means loving all of it. It's a challenge. Yes. It's a challenge. Can I get myself to stick to I love my life even as I notice the things I don't love so much?
Yeah. One of my good friends, Jeanette Moss, she is, I always call her the good vibe coach. She is the law of attraction coach. She runs the Good Vibe University. One of the things that she likes to say is, I love that about myself, right? As an affirmation, even when it's something that's maybe not so lovable or that something that we would normally not love about ourselves.
That's a good way to do it though. Yeah, that's good.
I love it. It's amazing. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see how it unfolds over the next 10 days. And I will definitely chime in and let you know.
Now, do you have any expectations about it? Is there anything that you're hoping is going to come out of it?
Not really. That's what's kind of funny is that with I Feel Rich, I was like, well, obviously.
You have a goal there.
The richer we feel, the more, the more money comes or the more. I had a lot of people give me gifts during that time. Or I had the experience of like the manager of a restaurant coming up and saying to us, oh, we've got it. We've got your ticket today. Have a great day. Or, we had that happen a lot in that 10 days. It's like, wow. I don't really have any specific thought about this, but I'm going to go for it anyway, because it seems really awesome. And then the pro tip for affirmations, if you're going for 1,000 a day, is keep it sweet, short, simple.
So you can move through quickly, right?
I love my life, because some of these, like Florence Scovel Shinn, as much as I love her, her affirmations can be very verbose and wordy. And
like
it's
what?
Like, yeah. Well, I'm trying to think. One she had was like, oh goodness, I can't. It was, God is my ever faithful supply. All my needs are met. It's like 5 sentences. And when you read the paragraph of it, it's like, whoa, that's really powerful. But saying it 1,000 times a day would
take a week.
Yeah, it's like, where has Cindie been? She's still in there.
She's still there. 426.
So short, sweet, to the point. I love my life.
By the way, you also the last time that you did the 1,000 a day deal. At the end of it, you gave us some tips on how to actually get in 1,000 a day. Keeping it short and sweet is certainly one of them. What else do you do in order to get them all in? And how do you keep track?
Well, I actually had the idea that I wanted to use some prayer beads, which there's all different kinds of prayer beads. There's a mala that has 108 beads. There's a tasbih that has, I think, 99 or 33. Some little malas have 27, all different numbers. I'm not sure how many are on a Catholic rosary, but any kind of beads. I didn't have any prayer beads, so I grabbed some Mardi Gras beads.
I love that.
Because I'm here in Louisiana, and I grabbed a set of Mardi Gras beads and I counted them, and there were 75. So I said, okay, 4 times around, that's 300. Mm-hmm. And so what I would do is I would do a set of them. And I kind of would just keep a running total in my head over the day. So I might do 300 and then I might do another 300 or another 75 or, I knew where I was in the process to get 1,000 in a day. And probably a lot of times I actually went over the number because I was like, better be safe than sorry. I'll do another round here. So I counted on beads. The other thing you can do is, most smartphones have a timer or a stopwatch or whatever. I would time myself saying maybe 5 and then,
multiply
say, okay.
out.
Yeah. And just say, okay, 20 minutes will cover it, and just set my alarm and just, get into a cozy chair and and go for it.
And when you're saying them, I mean, I can't imagine there's a whole lot of time for thinking about them because you're doing them repetitively, right? One after another. So it's not like you're getting a chance to really explore the feeling of it. You're just doing bang, 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 bang.
I mean, I definitely make an effort to be conscious of what I'm saying and notice how I'm feeling, because I think that's important. I mean, the more we go through learning about this stuff, we're always coming back to emotions, right? Emotional guidance system.
Yep.
Always touching on that. So how we feel and the emotions that we have, they actually are felt in the body. And that's something that a lot of people don't, really think about much. But our body is the mechanism by which we feel emotions through, right?
Right.
And I mean, when you laugh, when you cry, I mean, you feel it in your body. And so being aware of that, I think is really one of the keys to recognizing and opening up your intuition and knowing what's going on. It's a body sense. And so I think it's important to be aware. So I was paying attention. I remember the funny thing was when I was doing, I feel rich, I feel rich, I feel rich. I was actually thinking about what does it feel like to feel rich? And while I was doing it, I started having, this was like day one.
Mm-hmm.
I started thinking about experiences that I had had where I felt rich, whatever that means. And they were mostly experiences where I was, enjoying myself, or I was out somewhere nice, whether it was nice in nature, like at the beach, or I was at a nice restaurant. And one of the thoughts I had a memory of being at a really nice restaurant, here in town with some friends, eating really beautiful food, having a glass of wine. I had that memory in my head as I was saying, I feel rich. I feel rich. And it just passed by. And then that afternoon, I think this was day one or day two, the mail came, and in the mail was a gift card to that restaurant. And we had never gotten one in the mail before. It wasn't like, oh, these come all the time. And it was a $50 gift card, which is a pretty nice gift card. It wasn't a $5 gift card.
Right.
I mean, and even if it was, that's another tip. If you're trying to manifest more money into your life, be grateful and thankful when it shows up, whether it's a penny on the ground or $100 bill or, a larger denomination. Money is money. And so respect it by being excited when it shows up, whether it's a little bit or a lot. But this seemed like kind of a big hello.
Mm-hmm. But when these thoughts came to you, I mean, you were describing how you were getting these thoughts about, what it's like to live that way. Was that deliberate thinking that you were doing, or was that just default thinking, stuff that was coming to you out of the blue, seemingly?
That's a wonderful question. And I was not chasing those thoughts. It definitely came to me.
Oh, okay.
And that is a tip that a mentor taught me years and years and years ago, was let it come to you. Don't chase after it. Don't try to create it. Just let it show up. And for some reason, that's always been a really powerful process in my own conscious creation process. And that was a great question. No, it definitely, I feel rich, I feel rich. And here came these thoughts and memories.
Now you got me thinking, maybe I'll take the two and combine them together. It is longer, but I love my life. I feel rich.
Ooh, that's great.
I'm not sure if I'm ready to do 1,000 yet, but I'm liking the affirmation. It's a good one.
It is a good one. Definitely a good one.
Well, you're going to have to keep us surprised at what happens. That's for sure.
I will. And see, the other thing is that now I'm committed because I've talked about it on the podcast.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. If you don't do it now, you get shot dead. So, no.
Oh, no.
Not really.
Oh, God. So speaking of, being afraid of getting shot dead, we've been going through, we've been in this book. Don't you like my segue?
I love it. That was great.
Attraction. And we left off sort of in the middle of a section, and Jerry was asking Abraham about visiting friends that were sick.
Yeah.
Because he said, I don't want to be around people that are sick. because I don't want to catch what they have. But on the other hand, then I feel bad if I don't go see them. I mean, they're sick or they're in the hospital or whatever. And I don't want to be the guy that doesn't go see my friend. So he said, this is my strategy. And he basically lays out this strategy that he holds his breath when he goes to visit his sick friends. And he stands by the window and he keeps turning his head to the window and taking a breath. And it was hysterical. And so Abraham actually says to him that, well, Jerry, in your strange way, you are maintaining a vibrational balance. You want health, and you believe that germs could make you sick. You believe that your behavior of avoiding germs is preventing sickness, and so you achieve a balance that works for you. You are, however, going about it the hard way. And so Jerry ends up asking, so there's nothing wrong then with taking the cowards away?
I love this question.
It's so funny. There's nothing wrong with taking the coward's way out. It's great. Jerry's great. And Abraham says, there are many people who override their own guidance system. So that's what we were just talking about, that emotional guidance system, really paying attention, not shoving our emotions down, not ignoring them, not numbing out, but paying attention to how our body feels when we have emotions, whether they're pleasant or painful or any whatever kind of emotion they are. That's that guidance system that Abraham's talking about. So he says there are many people who override their own guidance system by trying to please others. And there are many people who will call you selfish or cowardly when you have the audacity to please yourself rather than them. Often others will call you selfish because you are unwilling to yield to their own selfishness without realizing the hypocrisy of their demand. Sometimes we're accused of teaching selfishness, and we admit that it is true. Because if you are not selfish enough to tend to your own vibration and therefore hold yourself in alignment with your source and with who you really are, then you have nothing to give to another anyway. When others call you selfish or cowardly, their own vibrations are clearly out of balance, and a modification of your behavior will not bring them into balance. Oh, that's really good, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
The more you think and speak of your own physical well-being, the more entrenched your own vibrational patterns of wellness will be, and the more the law of attraction will then surround you with things that enhance and support those beliefs. The more you tell your own story of well-being, the less vulnerable you will feel. And then not only will your point of attraction shift so that different situations will surround you, but you will also feel different about the situations as they come. This is like one of those sections where I want to get my highlighter out.
Yeah, right? There's a lot to highlight here. I also have to tell you, when you were doing the preamble leading up to reading this section, describing what we had talked about last time and about how Jerry goes into the hospital and a lot of people actually will go into a hospital saying, I don't want to get sick. I don't want to catch what they've got. When you said that, it's like I saw that thought in a completely different light. Because the way we normally think about that is, I don't want to get their germs. I don't want their contagion to reach me. And what I turned it into was, I don't want their thought contagion to reach me.
Oh, wow.
Because Abraham teaches us
vibration.
That's right. They teach us that when you get sick, it's because of a preponderance of what your thought processes have been over a previous period of time leading up to getting sick. And anyone who doesn't want to get that is right. They don't want to get that. Nobody wants to do that. And how do you avoid it? Well, you avoid it by not falling into the same kind of pattern of focusing on stuff you don't like and you don't want and making yourself feel miserable. You don't want that contagion. I mean, we talk about how we influence each other. We don't control each other, but we influence each other with our thought patterns.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting when you talk about energy and vibration. I mean, energy entrains to itself, which is why a tuning fork will cause, all the other instruments in the room to start vibrating at that tone, right? If you put two grandfather clocks in a room with each other and the pendulums are going differently, eventually they'll line up.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually heard someone tell me, now I didn't hear the surgeon say it, but they said that if you had two people on the operating table that were open, like open heart surgery, that their heartbeats would sync up to each other.
Wow.
And so, I mean, that's that vibe, right? We talk about it all the time. Everyone's had that experience. They walk in a room where like there's been an argument and they can, what happened? They can sense that there's tension in the room, or they walk in a room where everyone is in a good mood and it feels lighter.
Or in the first case, you may be like Jerry. You might want to look for the nearest window so you can start breathing again.
Well, right. So that's what I was going to say is, wow, I had never thought about that before, but you're right about that, is that there's a certain vibration happening. There's a vibe going on, and that's what we don't want to line up with.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily breathing in a germ.
Because, I mean, people get exposed to germs all the time. There are doctors and nurses. They're exposed to germs 24/7 practically. I mean, not quite, but
right.
Throughout their work shifts for certain. And they don't get sick. And I always wondered about that. Like, did the scientific studies that determined that when you get germ X, you're going to get disease Y, did they ever take into account what happens when doctors and nurses are exposed to them and don't get sick? I mean, how do you adjust for that when you're doing your study? I don't know how you do that, but I kind of suspect they never really adjusted for it. Whereas, what would happen if you did a study on what the mindset of the doctors and nurses were compared to the patients who were feeling sick?
Mm-hmm.
And how would you measure that? I have no idea. But it would be an interesting study if you could find a way to do it.
I was just thinking it was a good thing that Jerry's not a doctor, because he would have been just always standing by the window every time.
Excuse me, I have to go over to the window to read your chart. The light's better over there, you see.
So funny. But I love
But doctor, it's the middle of the night.
I love this section about, you brought this up the last time we did the podcast together. You were talking about the word selfish getting a bad rap.
Mm.
But this part where it says that when others call you selfish or cowardly, their own vibrations are clearly out of balance. And a modification of your behavior will not bring them into balance. And to me, that is exactly why, like when we talk about setting boundaries,
mm-hmm.
those boundaries are not to change someone else's behavior.
Right.
Someone else changing their behavior isn't going to bring you into alignment.
Nope. As much as we might like it to, but nope.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, well, how many times do we, or, someone says, well, if so-and-so would just behave this way, I'd feel better about whatever. Yeah, well,
and the amazing part is, on those rare occasions, whether they actually change, they don't feel better.
Yeah, or it's very short-lived.
Or it's
because
very short-lived,
your misalignment really isn't there because of them. It's because of you. So we're all responsible for our own alignment. Was there anything in those passages we just finished that stood out to you?
Oh, most of it, actually. I mean, once I got past the part about how the contagion was in our minds, then the rest of it was about how to deal with not being infected by the thought contagion.
Yeah, no, that's interesting and powerful, and I had never thought about it before.
I had never thought of it that way either. It just
really
kind of
just our alignment.
It was one of those things that just kind of, oh wait, there's a big sign over here. Pay attention to me. That's what it felt like. Wow.
So this next little section reminded me of the affirmation, I love my life, for some reason, but
because of the title.
Yeah, I am guided toward what I do like.
That's really encouraging for somebody who's about to, or has started engaging in saying 1,000 times a day, I love my life.
Yeah. Abraham says the only path to the life you desire is through the path of less resistance, or the path of most allowance.
Oh, I like that. Oh,
yeah.
Why didn't we hear that one before?
I don't know. I was like, this is like when we take the paragraph and we put it all in positive terms.
Yeah.
Allowance of your connection to your source, to your inner being, to who you really are, and to all that you desire. And that allowance is indicated to you in the form of good feeling emotions. If you will let feeling good be your most important priority, then whenever you are having a conversation that is not in harmony with the health you desire, you will feel bad. And so you will be alerted to your resistance. And then you can choose a better feeling thought and you'll be right back on track.
Yeah, that's walking into the hospital.
Well, and it says you can choose a better feeling thought, but if you notice in the beginning of the paragraph, it says whenever you are having a conversation that is not in harmony with the health you desire. And I'm expecting that sometimes our conversations are in our head with ourselves, but a lot of times our conversations are with someone else. And so when we are alerted to our resistance because it doesn't feel good, it says you can choose a better feeling thought. We can change the conversation.
That's right. I've done that.
Yeah.
I mean, if I don't like where a conversation is going because somebody is complaining about something, I'll try to change it. I don't always succeed, but I succeed for me. I don't necessarily succeed for them, I guess is what I'm saying. But I am really interested in changing the way I'm seeing it because I don't want to be dragged down their road. I don't like that at all.
Well, when you think about it, when we meet together on the podcast, we often ask each other, so what's going on? And it's definitely, we're wanting to know what's going right.
Yes. We should probably ask it that way, shouldn't we?
What good news do you have? Do you have any wins? Those are all questions that we've asked each other.
Mm-hmm.
Any wins for you since I've talked to you? What good news can you tell me? We don't show up and say, so what's going wrong?
Well, there's some people who probably do, but
well, that's what I'm saying is that that conversation would not feel good.
No.
Right?
That's a conversation to run away from as soon as possible.
Whenever you feel negative emotion, it is your guidance system helping you realize that you are, in this moment, offering resistant thought that is hindering the stream of well-being that would otherwise be reaching you fully. I want to read that again. Whenever you feel negative emotion, it is your guidance system helping you realize that you are, in this moment, offering resistant thought that is hindering the stream of well-being that would otherwise be reaching you fully. So there is a stream of well-being flowing towards each of us. And when we're not feeling a happy emotion, we are resisting and hindering that stream from reaching us. Wow.
Which is an interesting thing. And it almost, this is one of those questions. I mean, I know we've studied this whole upstream, downstream thing so much now that we have a fairly good handle on it. And yet whenever we pose a question, which is kind of what we're doing here in this one statement that they made here, we're posing the question of, well, what's the negative? What makes it negative and why is it negative? Why am I feeling negative? There's something about a thought that I had. What was the thought? Well, the thought was that I don't like it when John throws a brick at me. Well, yeah, nobody would like that too much. And I feel a negative emotion about that. Well, okay, I feel a negative emotion about that. I'm offering a resistant thought that is hindering the stream of my well-being. Well, of course I am. I don't want to have a brick thrown at me. So this is where the question comes in for me. I'm feeling a negative emotion, and for good reason. So how do I change my negative emotion so I'm no longer resisting?
Well, I love this. It says it is as if your guidance system is saying, here, you're doing it again. Here, you're doing it again. Here, you're doing it again. The negative emotion means you're in the process of attracting what you do not want. I think we stop and we pivot.
Yeah.
Because the negative emotion is in response to our thoughts. So we recognize what we're thinking. I know that I've told this story, it feels like a million times, broken record, but at the beginning of the year, it's such a powerful example because I think everyone can relate to it. I know you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
When I felt the cold coming.
That's right.
But I would all of a sudden realize what story I was telling, what conversation I was having in my head, what thoughts I was having. And they were all leading, they talk about resisting well-being flowing towards me because it would be, my head's starting to hurt. I feel like it's cold in here. I wonder if I have a fever. I bet I have a fever. Oh my gosh, I think my throat's a little bit scratchy. I mean, I was just like one symptom and suddenly I would pivot. I would stop and I would say no, this isn't what I want. What do I want? I want to wake up feeling full of energy. I want to have perfect, vibrant health. I want to come to the podcast with my voice comfortable and clear. I want to be able to breathe through my nose. And I would just start talking about what I wanted and why do I want those things? Because I want to feel good. I want to have a high energy level. I want to be able to do the things that I have on my list to do without suffering. Right. And I would suddenly start feeling better, but I had to do it over and over. So this part right here where it says, here, you're doing it again. Here, you're doing it again. Here, you're doing it again. Yeah, that really happened.
Oh, yeah. It happens a lot, too. It happens to us in most of our lives. We spend a lot of time during our days, more time than we really want to, I think. But we spend a lot of time focusing on this one thing that our guidance system is saying, well, you're doing it again.
Well, and it says many people ignore their guidance system by tolerating negative emotion.
Yeah.
And in doing so, deny themselves the benefit of guidance from broader perspective. And that's what I'm talking about when we will allow ourselves to identify, like one of the things that we can do that's really useful is to expand our emotional vocabulary. Like everybody knows the main four: happy, sad, mad, and scared. Those are sort of the basic emotions. And yet there are thousands of words to describe emotions. And most of us have a really limited vocabulary of emotional words. But if we can expand it a little bit and start using those, it helps us to identify what we're feeling. And we notice how it feels in our body when we feel a certain way. And all of those things, when we start paying attention to them, it's like we're getting to know our guidance system better.
Yeah.
It's like, have you ever had a computer program? Like, I'm so guilty of this. Like some of my programs, I have them to do a certain thing. And so I know how to use them for that certain thing. And really they have like 1,000 functions that could really help me, but it's like, no, I just need it for this.
Sure.
Right. I think about like a word processor. There's so many things that the program Word does that I'm oblivious to. But it's like people that can use Photoshop to do a couple little tweaks they need to do. But then there's the masters that know how to get into that program and really, really use it. And they produce something amazing, right?
Exactly.
So for us and our emotional guidance system, for us to really use it to its full benefit, we need to get to know it.
Yeah.
And that means we don't tolerate negative feelings. We don't push them down, numb them out. Or any feelings, actually. We get to know them.
I think it's also important to notice the word resistance. I mean, because when you started this section, the sentence said, the only path to the life you desire is through the path of less resistance or the path of most allowance. And we like the word most allowance, right? Mm-hmm. But the word resistance, I think there's like, you talked a little bit later on about how you're doing it again. Like there's a warning sign. Well, the warning sign is the resistance itself. And the interesting thing to me about resistance is that it comes in two different main flavors. One flavor is resisting, I don't want to get sick. I don't want this negative thing to happen. I don't like negative things. But the other one is resisting positive things. We resist in both directions when we resist. We don't think of it that way, but we resist positives as much as we resist negatives. And in doing so, we basically demonstrate that resistance itself is the problem.
Right. I like to say that the two flavors of resistance are aversion and attachment. So
yeah, that's a good way of saying it.
There's the no, I don't want to get sick. No. And then there's attachment to the positive outcome, right? I need to be well. I need to get well, right? Something's happening tomorrow and I don't want to be sick. I need to be well. It's a no and a yes, but they're both resistant.
They are.
And you can feel it in your body. And we talked about that the other day, kind of describing, well, what does resistance feel like to you? I mean, I feel it in my solar plexus, like a constriction. And I mean, I know I've had experiences where I've been resisting something for, not just the moment, like days or weeks. And I'm literally walking around carrying that feeling of resistance. and tolerating it. And that's the one thing, you have to drop those tolerations. And so getting to know what it feels like and recognizing, oh, okay, what's causing this sensation in my body?
Talk for a second more about dropping tolerations. That's an interesting phrase.
Well, anytime we're tolerating something, I mean, it's going to be a block towards us getting what we want. And oftentimes tolerations happen because we don't have strong boundaries, especially when other people are involved. Yep. But even things we tolerate that have nothing to do with other people, like I always use as an example, the burned out porch light.
Okay.
Right? It's like, it's hard to get to, it's hard to change. And so I just tolerate it. And I grumble about, oh, it's so dark out there right now. You know, I have to go out the front door for something and the porch light's burned out. And it's like, okay, I'm tolerating. I need to, you know, we tolerate clutter. We tolerate a lot of things that we have agency over and we could fix them. And so tolerations are often a sign of resistance. And when we get to know our emotional guidance system really well, in the way that I spoke of a minute ago, where we actually can identify things that we're feeling, even if we just start to recognize what resistance feels like in our body, instead of tolerating it, we pivot. We recognize it. And then we do something about it. We change the conversation. We think a better thought. We do something different than what we're doing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Otherwise, we're just tolerating it. And we tolerate all kinds of things.
It's true. I posted something. I've been posting articles in addition to the episodes that we do of the podcast on the website lately. And one I just wrote a couple days ago was about how I was awakened, I think it was Saturday, at about 2 a.m. by the smoke alarm in the living room going chirp every minute, you know, telling you that the battery is low. Chirp.
Needs a battery, right?
And to make it matters even worse, I was awakened out of a deep sleep. I could feel myself slowly emerging out of this deep sleep because of that chirp. And it's like, oh, no, I don't want to have to wake up to put in a new battery. But, of course, I woke up, you know. And I'm saying to myself, I wonder if I could just go back to sleep. You know, like, maybe I can just tolerate it, right? And chirp, right. Oh, geez, there it is again. And being an auditory person, of course, I'm hearing it. My wife is sound asleep. She doesn't hear anything at all. You know, I'm the one who's hearing this thing, and it's like, oh, God, this is torture. It's like water torture, right? So finally, I decided to do something about it. Like you said, to take some action rather than just tolerate this stupid thing. Went and found the step stool, climbed up on step ladder, climbed up the step ladder, pulled the thing off the ceiling, you know, took it down, took it over to the counter, and I'm bleary-eyed, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do you get it open? Oh, yeah, that's how you get it open. You get the battery out. Oh, there's a little tripwire. You got to put that in place, and you put that down, and then you seal it back up, and it still doesn't fit. Oh, it's because I forgot the tape and put the tape. I mean, you're doing all this stuff to get it done, right?
This is not what you want to do in the middle of the night.
And I'm thinking to myself, why is it that these things always go dead in the middle of the night? Why don't they go dead at 2:00 in the afternoon when it's easier? You know?
Exactly.
But I'm doing it, right? I'm fixing this thing. I finally put it back on the ceiling. Everything is quiet. It's like, oh, thank goodness. And then it's trying to get back to sleep. And I spent like the next 2 or 3 hours trying to get back to sleep. You know, so I think about that story. I think about that experience. And I actually told that experience to make a different point on the website. But in this context, I think about it in terms of the tolerance question. Because here I was, I found that tolerating it didn't work. But even after I fixed the tolerance, I still had created a new problem for myself. I've created the problem of not being able to go back to sleep. And as I'm thinking about it, I realized, you know what? I replaced one thing to tolerate with another thing to tolerate.
Yeah.
I mean, how annoying is that?
We're good at it.
We're really good at it.
I am asleep. I am asleep.
I'm asleep. Yeah, well, I've got a new mantra for that one now. Wow. I mean, we're just tolerating is definitely, it's not only a thing to avoid, it's a contagion that we have to learn how to overcome. We have to learn to say, you know, okay, I'm just done with tolerating. I'm going to stop tolerating. And I'm going to do it anytime I notice myself tolerating, I'm going to remove the thing that I tolerate. And I'm going to keep removing things that I tolerate until there aren't any left.
Yeah. I mean, I just see a very distinct connection between tolerations and resistance. In whatever form they come.
Yep.
So let's say it says, But once life, okay, many people ignore their guidance system by tolerating negative emotion. And in doing so, deny themselves the benefit of guidance from broader perspective. But once life has caused you to identify that you desire something, you will never again be able to look at its opposite or at the lack of it without feeling negative emotion. That's interesting, right? Once you identify a desire,
Yep.
then when you see the lack of it, you're not going to feel good. Once a desire has been born within you, you must look at the desire if you are to feel good. And the reason for that is you cannot revert back to less than life has caused you to become. Once you identify a desire for wellness or for a specific bodily condition, you will never be able to focus upon the lack of it again without feeling negative emotion. Whenever you feel negative emotion, just stop whatever it is you are doing or thinking and say, what is it that I do want? And then, because you have turned your attention to what you do want, the negative feeling will be replaced by a positive feeling, and the negative attraction will be replaced by positive attraction, and you'll be right back on track.
What a phrase that was. And the reason for that is you cannot revert back to less than life has caused you to become. That's why once a desire has been born within you, you must look at the desire if you are to feel good.
Yeah.
Wow.
When we look at the lack of it, we don't feel good. And this was the beginning of the book, right? We learned a lot about.
That's true.
That everything's like two sides of the same coin.
Mm-hmm.
And that many times when we are wanting to, well, in the case of the beginning of the book, it was money. We talked about money and how many times when we think we're asking for money, talking about money, focusing on money, we're actually, if it doesn't feel good, then what we're actually doing is focusing on the lack of it.
That's the truth. That's exactly what we do. We don't think about it that way initially, but when you look at it from the broader perspective, yeah, that's exactly what we do.
And so it's actually a really good tool to get to know well.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, okay, well, if I want to know whether I'm thinking about the thing or the lack of it, all I have to do is pay attention to how I feel when I'm telling this story.
And with that thought in mind, I want to remind listeners, because we talked about this earlier in the show, I want to remind listeners that you can continue to focus on what feels good and get the support to do that just by listening to episodes of this podcast. Because we're doing 11 of them a week. So
wow.
Take them 11 a week, yeah, with 7 co-hosts now. This is getting into mind-blowing territory. But we want to encourage you, do take the time to subscribe. It's very easy. And like we said earlier in the show, if you have a problem, you can contact us. There's a little contact button on the website. But just go to the homepage of the website at loatoday.net. The instructions are right on the homepage of how to do it. Most of you are going to find it's going to be something you do in just 1 minute or less. If you're among the very few who get stuck on something, don't get stuck. Just hit the contact button and say, I'm stuck. Here's what I tried to do and it didn't work. And I'll try to help walk you through it. We'll just do like a couple of email exchanges until we get it fixed for you. Because there's no reason for you not to be able to get all these wonderful episodes that come to you. So please do take a moment to subscribe and then, share the fact that you did that with your friends so that they know about it too. And before we leave, Cindie, how does somebody reach out to you if they want some help from you? Because sometimes it helps to get that personal touch, not just with trying to subscribe to a podcast, but with life.
Well, they can find me online. My website is cindiechavez.com. It's CINDIECHAVEZ. And you can find me on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram using the same name, or you can use the contact sheet at the loatoday.net. There's all kinds of ways, but cindiechavez.com is my website.
That sounds great.
I would love to have you just say hello, too.
Or at the very least say, I love my life. I love my life. I love my life.
I love my life.
As Cindy's going to be doing for the next few days, and she's going to be reporting back to us. So, Cindie, I'm looking forward to hearing what the report is tomorrow. Sounds good?
I'm going to go for it. I will
let
you know.
All right. That's why you want to tune in next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.